Hello, I'm Steven,
And I'm Aaron.
and we've just seen Wuthering
Wuthering
Heights,
Heights.
new film that's out in theaters right now, starring Margot Robbie and Jacob Elordi, and it is directed by Emerald Fennell. Bad dreams in the night. You told me I was going to lose the fight. Leave behind my Wuthering Heights, Heathcliff. It's me, it's Kathy, I've come home. I'm so cold. Let me in your window. That is a good song, and Wuthering Heights is a good book. But is this a good adaptation? We're going to discuss it. We're going to come at this from the perspective of somebody who has read the book, that would be me, and someone who has not read it, has only seen this film, that would be you.
That would be me.
So I feel like I should probably let you speak first, because I don't really think I can talk about this much without going into book spoilers. So I'll just ask you, what did you think of Emerald Fennell's Wuthering Heights?
Okay. I liked the movie, and I have a feeling that there's going to be two camps. There's going to be people that like the movie just as it is for its various things that it has going for it, and then there's people who read the book who are going to see the extreme liberties that I'm sure this movie takes with the source material. The one thing that I'm curious about is kind of the messaging in the book versus the movie. And I wonder how much of this is colored by when Emerald Fennell read the book, because to me this kind of reads like it could be like an angsty teen's take on like a dark traumatic love story that just goes horribly wrong, or it could be a commentary on class and power dynamics and how chasing wealth and status leads to nothing but misery for those involved. Even in the context of this love story, everybody just seems like they end up miserable, horrible, monstrous people by the end. I felt like that was kind of the point of the movie, but like I said, I'm wondering how different the book is, because that's kind of what I took away from this. I enjoyed it, but the way the movie kind of turns your perception of the characters as it progresses, I thought was pretty interesting. Because I kind of started on their side, like Kathy and Heathcliff, but as it progresses, both of them just get worse and worse and worse.
So the plot is Kathy Earnshaw is a child living at Wuthering Heights with her father, Mr. Earnshaw, and her maid Nellie. Mr. Earnshaw takes in a young boy named Heathcliff to be a servant and Kathy's pet. Kathy and Heathcliff become fast friends, and Heathcliff protects Kathy from her father's abuse. In their adulthood, Heathcliff remains a servant while Kathy is a spinster in need of a husband. Enter Edgar Linton from Thrushcross Grange. Heathcliff overhears Kathy say that it would degrade her to marry Heathcliff because of his social status, or lack thereof. So Heathcliff takes it personally and runs away to spend 3 years reinventing himself into a wealthy man. He buys Wuthering Heights and returns to Thrushcross Grange to find Kathy is married to Edgar Linton and living in opulence. Drama ensues.
Yeah.
So, as someone who has read the book, I would describe this movie as Emerald Fennell's Heathcliff fan fiction wrapped around the skeleton of the first half of Wuthering Heights. Where this movie ends, that's the midpoint of the book.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I could have just read the first half of Wuthering Heights and then watched this movie and had the same experience.
Hmm. Interesting. Well, that makes me more intrigued to read the book now, because I did not know that there was more story to be told.
Oh yeah, there's more, and the fact that that second half of the story is not in this is one of a number of reasons why I thought this movie sucked, and I didn't really like it at all. I was getting pretty tired of it towards the end of it, and was just waiting for it to end. And where it did end is pretty much where I expected it to.
Yeah, I thought it did start to kind of lose steam the more it progressed and the further it went.
You probably noticed that the title of the movie is in quotations. I don't know if you noticed that on the poster art. The title is in
I can't
quotations.
remember.
But here's what Emerald Fennell had to say about that. What I can say is, I'm making a version of the book. There's a version that I remembered reading that isn't quite real, and there's a version where I wanted stuff to happen that never happened. And so it is Wuthering Heights, and it isn't.
Okay, that was kind of also my take, is that this feels like it's probably not going to be a direct adaptation. It feels like this is somebody's like fantasy version of it, or this is like somebody's interpretation of it at a specific point in their life.
How did you feel about the acting in this movie?
I enjoyed everybody here, and I think the key to that is what I stated just a second ago, is that this is like a fantasy. This whole movie is heightened in pretty much every single way. Almost every character is a cartoon character in some form, or they're kind of played way up here when I'm assuming the book is a much more like grounded period drama.
The acting in this movie from pretty much most parties was incredibly sterile. Everybody feels like they're going off a script. Nobody feels like they're having organic conversations. Nothing feels real or natural, even in this fantastical world. I didn't buy anyone. I thought there's a lot of really talented people in this movie that I think are not doing that great, which I chalk that up to Emerald Fennell. The thing about Emerald Fennell is that I don't really care for her films. To me, she's a lot like Osgood Perkins. Her films are nice to look at, but they are emotionally hollow and devoid of substance.
I thought this was a little bit of a return to form because neither of us liked Saltburn.
No.
I liked Promising Young Woman quite a lot more than you did.
Correct.
So I was happy to see this kind of. I wouldn't say exactly like reel it back in because this movie is like over the top and goes like to some crazy places, but it's not. It doesn't push things as far as Saltburn did, and where like Saltburn felt like kind of like shock for the sake of shock and like really substanceless.
There's a lot of that bullshit in here too, which I'll get to in a moment.
It felt like a dark fairy tale to me, and I enjoyed the actors and the way they kind of played up everything. The cinematography, the production design, the soundtrack, and the score I thought were all really outstanding. It has like a very play like design about the world and the sets. It almost feels like you're watching actors like perform on a stage. Everything's got this kind of fantastical feeling to it. Like all the colors are cranked all the way up. It's always like foggy and atmospheric, and like the sun is always coming up or going down. Characters are always shrouded in like shadows or a haze.
There are shots in this movie that feel like they're ripped right off the cover of romance novels.
Yeah, basically every frame in this movie feels like a cover to a romance novel. I can't say enough good things about the visuals and the soundtrack, and I liked the use of the songs, like new songs from Charlie XCX, which gives it like an anachronistic feeling. But it didn't bother me. I actually enjoyed it here.
Yeah, the production design, the costume design, the set design, the cinematography, the lighting, color palette. That's the only thing I give this thing credit for. This is a visually stunning movie. Everything you say about that is true. It's a beautiful movie to look at, but even that, after a while, I just started getting tired of the extravagance of everything because it was in service of nothing. And so I just couldn't really care anymore. But I feel like this is what Emerald Fennell should be doing. Her strength is in the visual, her strength is not in her pen.
I kind of agree. I think she is a fantastic director, like a wonderful visual stylist, because every single one of her movies has like this amazing kind of color palette and production quality and value behind it. They always look and sound amazing, but it is the writing that always brings them down, especially in the case of Saltburn. And even here, like while I enjoyed the movie, the characters are pretty hollow when all is said and done.
So, what is your number grade then?
I would probably settle on like a 7. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Like I said, the longer it went on, it just kind of started to lose some steam and the characters became like less interesting the more monstrous they became. But that's kind of what I felt they were going for. It's just like another commentary from her on class and wealth and what that turns people into. Essentially, there's not too much depth in the characters. A lot of this is pretty superficial, and the visuals and soundtrack do carry it a long way. But I enjoyed it at the end of the day, and maybe a lot of it has to do with the fact that I didn't read the book. So go on your rant.
Yeah, this movie sucks.
That's right, it sucks.
I pretty much knew that it was going to be trash from the very first scene. Here's how this goddamn thing opens. We see Kathy and Heathcliff as kids watching a man get hanged. This man is an unnamed person who's irrelevant to the story. He has nothing to do with anything. He's hanging from a noose. He's got a bag over his head, And every time he tries to breathe, he's sucking in fabric, and in his pants, he's got a massive
It's
erection.
got a stiffy.
Yes. And just as he dies from strangulation, he ejaculates into his pants. This is not in the book. It has dick to do with anything, no pun intended. And it just keeps getting worse from there. So, yeah, Wuthering Heights is not a love story, and I find it offensive that all the trailers keep referring to this as the greatest love story ever told. No, Wuthering Heights is a gothic horror story about obsession and possession and entitlement and revenge.
Okay, I think all of those things are true of the movie. That's the thing I wonder about, and I would love to see interviews with Emerald Fennell because I wonder if she views this as a love story or if her intention was to be a gigantic critique on these characters. Because that's what I took away from this
I,
was like these are awful characters, and I did view it as kind of like a horror story.
More than anything, you know what this reminded me of? The 1995 adaptation of The Scarlet Letter. You know, the one where Gary Oldman was allegedly drunk every day of filming.
Yeah,
That is another movie that took an interesting book about guilt and shame, and they took away everything that made that book interesting and just reduced it to a simple bullshit love story, which this is. So, the character of Heathcliff in this movie is so softened. They clearly want you to want these two characters, Kathy and Heathcliff, to get together, and it was working on our audience. Like
yeah.
our audience was packed full of ladies.
They were swooning and they were like oohing and eyeing at all the right moments. Yeah, I'll admit, like even I was getting into some of that stuff. There's like one big moment when Heathcliff returns, and most of it was the visual for me. But I was just like, man, like they're executing this really, really well, and obviously the audience is responding to it.
Yeah, Heathcliff goes away for 3 years. He reinvents himself and he becomes a rich man, and then he comes back to Thrushcross Grange. And when he shows up in the mist as a silhouette, the audience goes,
But yeah, like they didn't know it was gonna happen.
a lot of them probably didn't. And
Yeah.
when the audience gave that response, the first thing I thought of is, oh, if only you knew what I know, because Heathcliff in the book is a monster. He is a terrible, vile, despicable, wretched human being. He does not come back to Thrushcross Grange and Wuthering Heights and like reignite his affair with Kathy. Well, first of all, how many times do you think Kathy and Heathcliff have sex in the book?
Oh, I'm gonna say 0.
Zero, not once. They do it so much in this movie. They,
Yeah.
they, they do this bullshit where they have to sneak away from Edgar, and they do this forbidden lovers thing where they keep meeting out in the woods or in a wagon or out in the mountains, and they have intercourse over and over and over again. That bullshit is not in the book. Heathcliff comes back to exact his revenge, not just against Edgar and Hindley. Hindley is a character who is not in the book because here's the thing: Mr. Earnshaw is not a gambling, addicted, abusive father. Mr. Earnshaw actually liked Heathcliff and neglected his own children in favor of Heathcliff. What happens is Kathy has this asshole brother named Hindley who is the abuser, who is the one who ostracizes Heathcliff because he's poor social status and he's dark. He's like a gypsy or Romani, whichever term you prefer. That character is not anywhere to be found in here. So Mr. Earnshaw is a composite character of Hindley and Mr. Earnshaw from the
Yeah.
book. And Hindley and Edgar wrong Heathcliff because Hindley was a bully and a scumbag to him, and Edgar took Kathy away from him and married her. So he comes back not just to exact revenge against those two, but also their children. And that's where the second half of the book is. It's Heathcliff exacting a generation long plan of revenge.
Yeah, it feels like I mean from what you're saying there that Emerald Fennell is trying to have her cake and eat it too. It seems like she's making this studio romance movie while trying to fit in this story about characters becoming just horrible, awful people.
Furthermore, in the softening of Heathcliff as a character, that is very prominent here in his relationship with Isabella. In the book, Heathcliff does indeed seduce Isabella, kind of like he does in the movie, except in the movie, they soften Heathcliff up by him asking her consent for every supposedly terrible thing he does to her. He's like, I'm going to treat you abominably. Do you want me to stop? I'm going to marry you for the sole purpose of hurting Kathy. Do you want me to stop? And then over the course of the relationship in the film, they have this strange BDSM type relationship where it's not Heathcliff assaulting or abusing Isabella. It's him basically playing Dr. Frankenfurter and releasing the kink beast that exists within her because towards the end of the movie, this is spoilers, by the way. Like that's why I broke this up into two halves. Towards the end of the movie, Nellie comes in to Wuthering Heights and finds Isabella down on the floor, acting like a dog. She's barking like a dog. She's behaving like a dog. She's got a chain wrapped around her neck like a dog. And Nellie is under the impression that she's being abused by Heathcliff. But then Heathcliff reveals that the chain that is supposedly binding Isabella is attached to nothing. So
Yeah.
she's doing this of her own volition. She enjoys it. She's enjoying this kinky relationship. Now, in the book, Heathcliff abuses her. He hangs her dog. He isolates her in Wuthering Heights. He keeps her a prisoner. He sexually assaults her, verbally abuses her, physically abuses her. He's a monster. He's a terrible human being. They have to soften him up because if Heathcliff does to Isabella in this movie what he does to her in the book, then nobody is going to be rooting for him in the end because at the end of this movie, people were bawling.
Yeah.
People were
Yeah,
bawling
people were, were crying.
because yeah, like I said, we're doing spoilers here. Kathy dies at the end of the book, and Heathcliff is over there like proclaiming his love for her one final time as she's dead, and people were crying like
Yeah,
wet eyes were everywhere.
well, I don't know. I feel like that's kind of an indictment on kind of culture and society at large today.
Yeah, I did feel a little disappointed in my species that night.
Because, like I said, everything you're saying about the book is how I felt about this movie watching it. Is like, wow, this is like a revenge tale. I thought this was going to be kind of a straightforward, for the most part, period love story drama, but it kind of twists into something darker. And yeah, the fact that so much of the audience was behind these characters for the majority of the runtime, like or the entirety of the runtime, I think says something about our culture and the things that we value.
I will say that the first half of this movie, before Heathcliff comes back, it follows the basic skeleton of the original story well enough, and I was kind of surprised by that. But and Kathy is correctly portrayed as a brat because
Oh yeah,
Kathy in the book is a spoiled, petulant little brat who whines if she doesn't get her way.
that was the first kind of interesting thing to me about watching this was like, oh, I already don't kind of like this character, but we'll see how they evolve or where they go. But I thought that was pretty interesting that she's just kind of a spoiled little like punk the whole movie.
So yeah, that's correct. But like I said, all the performances felt so artificial to me. Also, there was some controversy, I guess, about the costumes being not period accurate. I'll look the other way on that. What matters to me is that the story is represented accurately and it captures the essence of the book, and I don't think that was true. I can look past the fantastical imagery and the costumes not being period accurate or being extravagant, so long as the story is represented well. Kind of like Baz Luhrmann's Romeo plus Juliet.
Yeah, yeah. That didn't bother me either. I saw like a thing online, people talking about like Kathy's like cellophane dress. You just got like this plastic looking dress on, and like this is not period accurate. It's like, well, I mean, if you've been watching the movie the whole time, the whole thing is like pretty heightened and fantastical. So it should, and we've got Charlie XCX songs going on in the background. It shouldn't be that surprising.
And then there was the character of Joseph. Do you remember the little servant Joseph? He's you don't see him much, but he's the guy who's having intercourse with Zilla out in the
Yeah,
barn, and
yeah.
he puts a
He's
horse's
got
bit in
like
her mouth, and they
the red hair guy.
yeah, yeah, that what the hell? It's like that's not in the book. Like none of the kink stuff is in the book. This is all the product of Emerald Fennell's imagination.
Yeah,
That quote I said earlier, where she said there were things that weren't in the book that I wanted, like that's what I chalk this up to. The reason why you have Isabella with a dog chain around her neck, which is not in the book, that's because Emerald Fennell thinks this is hot, and that's fine. By the way, that's
maybe.
okay. It's like this kind of reminds me of our review of Honey Don't, where we were talking about that film felt more like a showcasing of Ethan Cohen and Trisha Cook's fetishes. That I felt similarly about this.
That's fine if it's in the service of something. That movie, neither of us felt like it was really servicing the characters in any kind of way. Here, I mean, I suppose you could say the same thing, but the stuff about Heathcliff being a monster, and even with them kind of softening him up and doing the whole consent thing, it's still him using his money, his power, his good looks, and his charms, especially, to take control of another person. And it almost says something more about his power that the person is seemingly willingly going along with this, even though they clearly don't want to. I didn't like quite read it exactly the same way you did.
Yeah, I disagree. It seemed like they were painting Isabella in this movie as a sexually frustrated, pent up kinkster who has finally been unleashed. It's like, oh, I finally found my calling. Now I'm going to have this kinky BDSM type
Yeah,
relationship with Heathcliff.
she's certainly like reserved and like sheltered, but I didn't see it exactly that way. Like she certainly has some kind of awakening, but I don't think that she is the character that would take it to this extreme.
Touch, 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 touch me. I want to be dirty. It's frickin' Rocky Horror Picture Show. So yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts in the movie. I think it's a pretty terrible translation of the book. It softens the book up. The acting feels sterile and artificial. Nothing feels real. I don't feel immersed in the story. The complete betrayal of the source material I just find so offensive. Calling this a love story is ridiculous when this is a horror story through and through. Like they put it in the trailers, and
They did. Part of me wonders, and this is probably not the case at all, but I wonder like if this is just like a giant trick on the audience, or if it's a clever bit of marketing to call this a love story when it's like the most horrible thing when you finally go to see it. 'Cause it's just interesting to me that everything you're saying in the book is pretty much what I got out of watching the movie, but the audience, like I said, it's like the real trick is revealing how horrible the people are that went to see this and actually saw it to be a love story.
yeah, I don't think this is a psychological exercise, and I think Emerald Fennell just seriously misread this material.
Yeah, I mean, that certainly is
Like, look at
probably the case.
just like look at the stuff she's put out. I was also thinking throughout all this that the book is so relentlessly dark and aggressive. I have a coworker who I think accurately described it as vicious. It is a vicious book. It's one of those books where things get bad and then they get worse. And I thought, who'd be a perfect fit for this is Darren Aronofsky.
Yeah.
Instead of him making his sad little AI projects about George Washington to kill his career, he should have made this.
Yeah, I'm very curious to read that book now because
It's a good one. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
yeah, I was wondering how different it was going to be from the film I saw and kind of what my takeaway from it was. But to hear you kind of say things that are like so similar to what I thought it was, like I thought the book was going to be like wildly different from the movie that I watched and what I took from it. The way I watched it, I guess she accidentally made like an accurate adaptation of the book.
Oh, and that reminds me, I keep remembering things. Like that character that Hong Chow plays, Nellie, she's the narrator of the book. People will call her an unreliable narrator, but she's also kind of the voice of reason in a lot of ways. And in this movie, just villainizes the shit out of her.
Yeah, that she's a character I was very curious about, like in regards to comparing it to the book, because I kind of viewed her the same way. It's like she's the servant and she's of the poor class in this movie, so she seems the one who's the most grounded because they usually are. They have to take care of everybody and clean up after their messes. But she gets involved in kind of all the debauchery and all the scheming, so even she is kind of lowered to their status by the end of the movie.
Yeah. She becomes like an obstacle to be overcome by Kathy because she keeps sabotaging their relationship by burning letters that Heathcliff is sending to her. And it's just, yes, again, just such a misreading of the material. She's not the villain of the story. That's the guy that you venerated, Emerald.
I'd love to do polling on like audiences or ask them what they thought of the characters. Like, did they actually like the characters for what they were doing in the story, or did they like them for entirely superficial reasons? Like
that
Jacob Elordi is a damn handsome man, so
I didn't particularly like him. I thought he gave a very sleepy, uncharismatic performance.
I think for the way they wrote his character, I thought he was really good. He has this kind of like reserved, really shy quality about him, and I think Jacob Elordi does a great job of playing that while like having some charm shine through. But yeah, I wonder how much of the audience's like for the character is like carried by his looks.
Yeah, I have to wonder the same. By the way, after I watched this, I watched another version, a 1992 version with Ralph Fiennes. I wanted to watch the most accurate film adaptation of this book, and so I watched this 1992 version with Ralph Fiennes and Juliette Binoche. And the thing about that movie is it's not very good. It 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 has been called the most accurate film adaptation of the book, and it is. It is a faithful adaptation, but here's the problem. It doesn't tell the story of Wuthering Heights so much as it speed runs it. Because
Well, I mean,
this book is like 2 hours and 50 minutes minimum to do it accurately. That movie is 1 hour and 45 minutes.
yeah,
So it is rushed.
that's a problem with a lot of book adaptations. There's just simply not enough time.
It was also Ray Fiennes' debut, actually,
Wow.
which is pretty cool. But and yeah, Ray Fiennes, I thought he's doing the best he can with the limited material because obviously the movie has been truncated severely. But he does do a better job of really getting to the core of Heathcliff's pettiness and his cruelty and his entitlement, much more so than Jacob Elordi. So this movie is kind of like The Great Gatsby to me. It's like I would like to see that one great adaptation, and I don't think we've gotten it yet.
Yeah. Um, I'm curious to see what mainstream audiences think of this, and I wonder if like we were talking about the things that Emerald Fennell likes to put in her movies, this one specifically, I wonder if this is the stuff that she's into and she wants to see in the movie, or if she's just that aware of what is going to click with today's audiences. Like, let me take this story and then let me put all these elements and change these aspects because like today's culture responds to these things. I wonder how much of that is
That sounds like focus group algorithmically determined shit.
well, not from that perspective, but like we were saying, the audiences and like the women, especially in the crowd, when we watched it, were very responsive to a lot of stuff in the movie, and I just couldn't help but think like, really, like you guys are into these characters, the love story is working for you because everything that they're doing to each other is awful,
Yeah.
and you should go home like thinking about how morally corrupt and terrible they are, and I, I don't know. I don't know. I think the movie is kind of interesting in what it says about the people that watch it. Like if they enjoy it as a love story or if they actually see it, the for what I think it's supposed to be seen as.
So you give it a 7 out of 10. I give it a 2 out of 10.
Two,
This movie sucked.
dang.
Sucked. Beautiful costumes, though. Excellent cinematography, gorgeous visuals. Like, my God, if Emerald Fennell could, like, just direct a movie, don't write it.
Yeah, I would love to see her next thing be just directing somebody else's script because I feel like she's got all the talent in the world when it comes to putting together a scene and directing and this visual style and the use of color and sound. Pretty amazing, but the writing is certainly not the strong suit. I don't think.
No.
Although I loved Promising Young Woman, hated Saltburn.
So that's Wuthering Heights. One of us says see it, the other one says avoid it like the plague.